Tonight on NewsWatch, a dark moment in American history, remembering the day President John F. Kennedy was shot 50 years ago. Plus, he brought us the Chronicles of Narnia and more, a look at the life and legacy of C.S. Lewis 50 years after his death. And a sneak peek at what could become a new Christmas classic, hitting theaters today. All this and more tonight on NewsWatch. The nation remembers a fallen president 50 years after his assassination. Good evening, everyone. I'm Ephraim Graham. 50 years ago today, President John F. Kennedy was assassinated. Those who remember that day in Dallas, Texas, say it changed America. The city held its first official memorial today, marking the tragedy. It included prayers, speeches, and a military jet flyover. Visitors came throughout the day to see the eternal flame burning above Kennedy's grave at Arlington National Cemetery. The president and his wife were in a presidential motorcade when he and Texas Governor John Connally were shot. Kennedy's accused assassin Lee Harvey Oswald was murdered just days later. His death also caught, as you see there, on film. CBN News senior political editor John Waggy joins us now to talk more about the day and how it did change America. John, why do you think the Kennedy assassination has so much of a hold on us some 50 years later?
Well, Ephraim, for one thing, this was a moment for those who went through 9/11. They have their own moment of where were you when it happened? And for the Kennedy assassination, that's how it was for all of us who were alive then. You remember where you were, what you were doing, who you were talking with. It was stunning. And you had a country that was now on top of the world after World War II, a young president, the youngest ever elected, beautiful wife, 2 little children in the White House, and you had tens of millions of baby boomers coming into the population, and it was one of those things where, for those of us who watched it and witnessed it, it was just the end of an era that seemed so hopeful and full of promise.
Indeed. Now, many people just assume that JFK was as popular in life as he was in death, but that wasn't necessarily the case. Tell us why.
No, it's interesting, Ephraim. You know, Kennedy was in Dallas because of a fundraising trip. He needed to raise money because he had lost Dallas during the 1960 election, and no Democrat had ever won the presidency without winning Texas. So he had to have Texas, and he was not doing real well. And part of the reason was to smooth over feathers down in Dallas. That's why he went there. And a lot of analysts believe that he could have lost to somebody like Barry Goldwater in 1964. So it wasn't a given. He wasn't that popular at the time.
Wow. For liberals, the Camelot myth of the Kennedy is still powerful, but conservatives say Kennedy was far removed from today's Democratic Party. What's your take on that?
Well, conservatives like to claim the things. He had a brilliant inauguration speech where he talked about, we will pay any price, bear any burden for liberty around the world, and he warned our adversaries, the Soviet Union and others, that he was going to be tough. And he talked about, ask not what your government can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. That's kind of 180 difference from, where we see the Democratic Party today. So conservatives kind of like to claim him, but progressives say he would have moderated with the times as well.
Well, one of the world's great Christian thinkers, C.S. Lewis, also died 50 years ago today. Why should we be celebrating him as well?
Well, I'm glad that we're going to have a story by David Cathcart later in the program. He was a remarkable influence on millions of Christians around the world, including myself, with the Chronicles of Narnia and Mere Christianity. And I think that his legacy is going to grow and grow as the years go by. So it's important to remember him as well.
Absolutely. John Waggy, thank you so much. Always appreciate it. The talks on Iran's nuclear program have stalled, and on a visit to Moscow, Israel's prime minister warned again that the deal would simply not work. Chris Mitchell has that story now from Moscow.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu told a gathering of local Jewish leaders in Moscow Israel would not obligate itself to a bad deal and promised those Jewish leaders Iran would not get nuclear weapons. After a 2-day visit here in Moscow, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu still faces an uphill diplomatic battle to convince Russia and the rest of the international community not to sign a deal with Iran.
I think it's been a tremendously uphill battle because you're dealing, first of all, you're going up publicly against the U.S., your greatest ally, and then you have to push all these other countries who who generally are following the U.S. on this matter, except for Russia and China.
Yet it's having an influence.
Netanyahu standing up on every rooftop and screaming this is a bad agreement, I think it does have an impact on those who are sitting in the room with the Iranians.
While Iranians negotiated in that room in Geneva, their supreme leader Khamenei made some provocative statements. Khamenei called Netanyahu the sinister mouth of the unclean rabid dog of the region in the Zionist regime. He added, the Zionist regime is an imposed regime, and this regime will not endure. Netanyahu told CBN News in an off-camera briefing that securing the future of the Jewish state is what moves him. Kanan says Netanyahu feels called for such a time as this in Jewish history.
He feels Jewish history. He feels the weight of Jewish history. I think he feels the responsibility of Jewish history. You have a regime right now which is threatening to annihilate the state of Israel. Right? I think he feels very much an historical role of preventing that. Right? Come what may. If it means creating some tension with the U.S., then so be it. If it means standing up in the face of world opinion, so be it. If it means taking some bad New York Times editorials, so be it. That's why I'm here. That's my role. That perhaps is my fate, and that's what I'm going to do.
Some compare Netanyahu to the Churchill of our time. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Moscow.
A children's center in eastern India is forced to close because of threats to the Christians operating it. Gospel for Asia reports its Bridge of Hope Center was marched on and death threats were made to the staff by extremists. It displaces 100 impoverished children who were receiving much needed food, medical care, and education. The ministry's founder wrote, "It breaks our hearts to see adults who should be the protectors of these children become the roadblocks to their future and hope of a better life." They're asking Christians to pray for the safety of those children. A UK Foreign Office minister warns that Christians in parts of the world face extinction because of the persecution they face. In a recent speech, Muslim Baroness Saida Warsi shared her concern, saying 1 in 10 Christians live in a minority situation. The birthplace of Christianity, the parts of the world where Christianity first spread, is now seeing large sections of the Christian community leaving, and those that are remaining are feeling persecuted. Warsi called on leaders of all faiths and governments in the West to fight the new sectarianism breakout that's happening worldwide. A Jewish hospital in Canada says it won't comply with a new bill if it becomes law. It is called the Secularism Charter. The goal behind it is to create state religious neutrality in Quebec. It bans religious symbols on public employees, including hospital workers. Hospital leaders said in a statement that, quote, "The hospital believes that neutrality in the delivery of healthcare services is not compromised by religious symbols in the clothing of its employees." Relief agencies across the world are responding to help victims of Typhoon Haiyan in the Philippines, including a partnership of Christians and Jews. John Wagi reports now on a new team effort between CBN Disaster Relief and an Israeli group helping Filipinos deal with the trauma.
A 4-member team from the Israel Relief Coalition left Tel Aviv this week to assess the ongoing needs in the Philippines.
Our first delegation was for rescue and emergency medical, and they came back, and now we want to create a program, a plan for the long term.
This coalition includes more than 15 humanitarian and other Israeli organizations. CBN's Operation Blessing will help with logistics and more.
We want to cooperate in the field with the mayor, the local mayor, and local partner, with the government, and with Operation Blessing and CBN, to make the assessment together hand by hand and to plan the program for the long term and to see which one take what part.
That will include programs to help people get their lives back on track.
A psychosocial program means that we are going to work with the parents, the educators, all the people who sort of sew together the fabric of society.
Trauma expert Dr. Roni Berger says Israelis bring a lot of experience to the table.
You want to mobilize the person and turn him from being a helpless individual into being proactive. You can't take away the pain of losing someone or losing a house. I mean, that's a significant thing. But you can see the future and you can develop hope.
Berger says Israelis have a special connection with the Philippines.
Most of the elderly in Israel are cared by Filipinos. women as my mother. So I think we're indebted to them on some level.
There will also be sacrifice, as Dr. Sharon Shaul must leave her 4 children in order to serve for several weeks.
We take some medicines, antibiotics, some vaccinations, this is the basic. But the main thing that we are taking is us. I mean, we intend to give what we can. We have our knowledge and our goodwill, actually.
John Waggy, CBN News.
Evangelist Billy Graham is back home after a 2-day stay in the hospital. He checked in earlier this week for observation and lung tests. Doctors are pleased with the results of Graham's evaluation. They say he was alert and in good spirits during his stay. This is his second hospital stay over the past month. He recently celebrated his 95th birthday in Asheville, North Carolina. A disturbing ruling for Christians in the case of a fired teacher. We've got that story coming up next. Plus, the latest on the call to take the phrase "under God" out of the military pledges and life.
In 2008, my husband Gary departed for heaven. I was still grieving. And then to find out I had cancer, I began praying, God, how do I do this? Where do I do this? Cancer Treatment Centers of America was the place. Dr. Neelam outlined a plan that would take care of my mind and my body, and she prayed with me.
For Bible-believing Christians, we're able to pray with them in a much deeper way as they begin to really rely upon their faith.
At Cancer Treatment Centers of America, we believe in the power of faith and prayer as indispensable allies in the fight against complex and advanced stage cancer.
I'm back in Telluride on the mountain skiing. I feel strong and healthy.
Advanced medicine and technology.
And I am a survivor.
The warm embrace of the Spirit and the power of prayer.
These are happy tears.
Please go to cancercenter.com/faith. Appointments available now. Cancer Treatment Centers of America. Care that never quits.
What would you do in a medical emergency?
This is Life Alert. Are you okay?
Help! I've fallen and I can't get up.
I'm calling for help right now.
Fire emergency.
Sharon, we received a smoke signal coming from your kitchen. Get out now. We're calling the fire department.
Home intrusion. Emergencies away from home.
I think someone may be following me.
I'm right here and we'll stay on the line with you and we can contact the police if necessary.
If it weren't for Life Alert, I wouldn't be sitting here today.
Life Alert saves a life from a catastrophe every 11 minutes.
For a free Life Alert brochure, call 1-800-524-5236. That's 1-800-524-5236. Call now at 1-800-524-5236 to get a free brochure. 1-800-524-5236. 1-800-524-5236.
An Ohio court ruled in favor of a school district that fired a teacher who kept religious materials in his classroom. 8th grade science teacher John Freshwater had a Bible, Christian books, and a poster of a president praying. The court says the school district was in the wrong when administrators ordered him to remove his personal Bible, but Freshwater was insubordinate for keeping the other items. The Air Force Academy has taken more steps to comply with the demands of atheists. CBN News already reported they forced the Academy to stop using the phrase "so help me God" in the cadet honor oath. Now comes word that the Air Force has went even further. Officials have even removed the phrase from handbooks and removed posters that include it. Joining us now with more on this story is Ron Cruz, the chaplain of the Chaplain Alliance for Religious Liberty. Well, Ron, first explain for our audience how the Air Force violated the law by removing God from the oaths in the handbook.
Well, we were contacted by several parents of students at the Academy who looked at their cadet handbooks and discovered that the words "so help me God" were not in the officer oath, the cadet oath. It was only in the honor oath. And so we contacted several members of the House Armed Services Committee. We contacted the Air Force Academy and asked them as to why these words were taken out. And we are grateful that several members of Congress acted on this and sent a letter to the Air Force Academy. And we are told now that it was a, quote, printing error. However, it has been a couple of years that these handbooks have been produced without the words "So help me God" in them. We're concerned about that because our young men and women signing up to defend this country by serving in the Air Force, they take an allegiance and they say, we're going to defend this Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And the words in law, their oath in law, have the phrase, "So help me God," in that oath. And these cadets should have that privilege of saying the words as they are written in law.
So were cadets ever forced to say the phrase, "So help me God," or was it optional? It was
Always known that this phrase is optional, that officers, when they take the oath, whatever the branch is, the words are in that oath, "So help me God," but it is always known that some people come from backgrounds that do not affirm in that way, so they were always given the option to not say it, and we want to respect that right. However, those cadets who come from households of faith, and many do, we want them to be able to solemnize their oath with the words, "So help me God," as have generations of military officers before them.
Some atheists say putting God in the oath is a relatively new idea that is not grounded in the founding of America. How do you respond to that claim?
Well, first of all, we know from the historical record of those who wrote about the swearing in of George Washington, our first president, even though those words were not in the presidential oath as passed by Congress, when he put his hands on that Bible, he said, "So help me God." And generations, every president since then has done that. Further, when Congress acted on putting officer oaths in the U.S. Code, they did that. In 1862, I believe it was, when Congress inserted the word "So help me God" in the officer oath in the U.S. Code.
All right, Ron Cruz, thank you so much for your time. Always appreciate it.
Thank you.
Up next, his stories stretched our imaginations and made us think about our faith. A look back at the life of C.S. Lewis and how his struggle to believe shaped ours.
Hello? Is this thing on? Hey, kids, do you love games? And do you love discovering things? Well, do ya?
Then you're gonna love this. It's the new free Superbook Kids Bible app. You can play games, watch videos, find answers to your questions, and a whole lot more. The new Superbook Kids Bible app. Free downloads available on iTunes and Google Play now.
Jim is 38, mortgage, married, 3 great kids. He wants to protect his family with a $500,000 term life insurance policy. What do you think it'll cost him? $100 a month? 60? 40? Actually, none of the above. Jim can get a $500,000 policy from a highly rated insurer for under $19 a month. His secret? SelectQuote. SelectQuote is impartial. They'll comparison shop the pick of insurance companies like these to give you a choice of your best prices. SelectQuote has great savings on term life for women, too. Jim's wife, Deidre, can get a $500,000 policy for under $16 a month. SelectQuote has helped make term life insurance affordable for hundreds of thousands of people since 1985. How about you? Just call this number or go to SelectQuote.com. SelectQuote. We shop, you save.
Attention sleep apnea patients. Are you tired of the expense and hassle of getting your CPAP and BiPAP supplies? Are you fed up with dealing with ill-fitting, leaking, or worn-out masks and straps? Are you worried about the effects that unsanitary tubes, cushions, and filters have on your health? If you said yes to any of these questions, Allied Medical Supply Network has the solution to your problems. You could qualify to have your supplies regularly delivered right to your door at little or no cost to you. That's right, no more inconvenience, no worn-out masks and straps, no more unsanitary equipment, just restful sleep. Call Allied Medical Supply Network today to determine if you may qualify to receive your fresh, brand-name supplies at little or no cost. Don't delay. Call us now to see if you are eligible to save money on regular delivery of your CPAP and BiPAP supplies. Call 1-800-815-9947. That's 1-800-815-9947. Or go to cpapsupplyhelpline.com.
As America remembers the 50th anniversary of John F. Kennedy's assassination, many around the world are also marking the life and legacy of Christian author and scholar C.S. Lewis. The renowned author also died that day. His books, like the Chronicles of Narnia and Screwtape Letters, have influenced generations. Here's CBN's David Cathcart on Lewis's journey of faith.
C.S. Lewis, who went by the name of Jack all of his life, grew up with his older brother Warnie in Belfast, Northern Ireland.
His grandfather was a minister, so he had that tradition. He had an understanding of Christianity, but he didn't really grapple it to his soul until much later.
But the beginnings of Lewis's faith suffered with the death of his beloved mother.
She had been a bulwark. She had been someone that he relied upon. Her faith was his faith. And when she died when he was 10 years old, that began a rather gradual erosion of his own faith, until when he studied under his great teacher, W.T. Kirkpatrick, his great tutor. Kirkpatrick himself was an atheist. Lewis eventually sort of adopted Kirkpatrick's point of view.
Jack enlisted in the Army and fought in World War I. He experienced all the horrors inflicted on soldiers in trench warfare. Afterward, as he studied at Oxford University, his journey away from faith was now complete.
He went through the whole process of being the angry atheist.
He's angry about what's happening to him. He's angry about what he sees happening in the world, and he blames God, and yet at the same time, he doesn't want to believe in God.
One of the interesting things that Jack discovered when he first went to Oxford University was that there are many people whom he really got on with very well, he liked enormously. And after a year or so, he suddenly began to realize that the people he liked all happened to be Christians.
C.S. Lewis's journey to faith is sort of like a two-stage rocket, you know, that one level fired off and then the next level fired off, that he first had to go from atheism to a belief in the existence of God.
Lewis loved taking long, extended walks with his friends. Many times their conversations turned toward belief in God and faith in Jesus Christ.
And you can imagine late at night after dinner, C.S. Lewis is walking with Tolkien, the author of the soon-to-be author of The Lord of the Rings. These two great men are walking together. And Tolkien, who was already a Christian, was explaining to Lewis that the Christian story is the world's only true myth. Somehow what Tolkien had described to him that night sunk in a couple of days later.
Jack was leaving his home in Oxford, called the Kilns, for a trip to the zoo in his brother Warnie's motorcycle sidecar. At some point during that ride, Lewis finally came to a decision about Jesus Christ.
Jack climbed into the motorcycle at the Kilns, not believing that Jesus Christ was God the Son of God. He got out of the motorcycle at Whipsnade Zoo, utterly convinced of it.
The Logos is made flesh, or as Lewis put it beautifully, myth is made history.
He lived the Christian life, minute by minute, day by day. He observed and listened and studied what Jesus said and then went out and did it. Probably better than anyone else I have ever met in my life.
Up next, another beloved Christian author's book is made into a Christmas movie, and many believe it will be a favorite for decades to come.
Announcing an important breakthrough in healthcare that can benefit everyone. If you or anyone you love needs affordable health insurance, regardless of a pre-existing medical condition, call Quick Insurance 123 today and get the immediate relief you deserve. Quick Insurance 123 was created to provide affordable health insurance to all uninsured Americans, with or without pre-existing conditions. This is not a discount card. This is a real insurance program that lets you choose from many affordable health plans, with access to doctors, hospitals, emergency services, and more. So call the number on your screen now and get the health coverage you need, just for calling. As a special bonus, we'll send you a free prescription savings card that could save you up to 85% on your prescriptions. That's right, you could save up to 85% on your prescriptions, just for calling. Call Quick Insurance 123 to find out how you can get affordable health insurance and receive your free prescription savings card, just for calling. Don't wait. Getting a free quote is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Call today.
Attention sleep apnea patients. Are you tired of the expense and hassle of getting your CPAP and BiPAP supplies? Are you fed up with dealing with ill-fitting, leaking, or worn-out masks and straps? Are you worried about the effects that unsanitary tubes, cushions, and filters have on your health? If you said yes to any of these questions, Allied Medical Supply Network has the solution to your problems. You could qualify to have your supplies regularly delivered right to your door at little or no cost to you. That's right, no more inconvenience, no worn-out masks and straps, no more unsanitary equipment, just restful sleep. Call Allied Medical Supply Network today to determine if you may qualify to receive your fresh, brand-name supplies at little or no cost. Don't delay. Call us now to see if you are eligible to save money on regular delivery of your CPAP and BiPAP supplies. Call 1-800-815-9947. That's 1-800-815-9947. Or go to cpapsupplyhelpline.com.
A story by best-selling Christian author Max Lucado is now a movie in theaters. It is called The Christmas Candle, and even critics are saying this could very well become a classic. The Christmas Candle is an inspiring movie set in a simpler time in England. John Stevenson is the film's director.
It's all set in the Industrial Revolution, which is really important part of the movie, because things are changing. You know, the old ways are giving way to the new.
Stevenson guides an all-star cast in the heartwarming story based on Max Lucado's 2006 novel.
My character Emily lives in a village, a very religious village, and they kind of have their hopes all wrapped up in this Christmas candle, this miracle candle, and she doesn't believe in any of it.
Samantha Barks, best known for her work in Les Miserables, plays opposite Hans Matheson from Clash of the Titans and Sherlock Holmes fame.
And he's a man with very mistaken ideas. This is due to the fact that he lost his wife and his child, and there's a sort of hidden anger in him towards God, and he has this unanswered question that God never answered his prayers.
Matheson plays a minister called to lead a church in a tiny village.
This reverend has a secret. He no longer believes in miracles, and he's thrust into a town of miracle-believing folks.
Tom Newman is the film's producer.
If you know that you're given the Christmas candle, and everyone who's got that candle for 200 years, their prayers have been answered, what would you do to get that candle?
Newman and his fellow filmmakers say there were even miracles in the very making of this movie. They include landing singing sensation Susan Boyle in a role that was actually written with her in mind.
It's a story that inspires me in that you never give up on your dreams, and you never stop believing in miracles. Because what happened to me was pretty miraculous. I always believe in miracles.
And believing.
Forgive my ignorance, but what is this Christmas candle?
The Christmas candle's no different than old wives' tales or your Bible stories.
Is the message filmmakers want audiences to receive.
We're not in this alone, and that we can be better for one another. And when we are in need, we believe that God is there to help us as well.
And that film hits theaters today. That is going to do it for this edition of NewsWatch. Remember, you can always email us your comments and questions at newswatch@cbn.com. Hope you'll join us again right here next time. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody.